Hello, everybody. We are live. We are live. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go ahead and share this video. We're waiting on Spike to get in. Once he get in, we can definitely kick off the show. For some reason, I don't know why it want to act up sometimes. So just know that we are here. And we're going to go ahead and move forward. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hey, Jen. Hey, Shaquila. Make sure you guys share the video. And we are so excited. So tune in to tonight's show. And come on in the room. Share the video. Let people know that we are here. Hey, who's that? Hey, Josh. Thank you so much for tuning in. I definitely appreciate you. And thank you so much. Spike is here. He's in staging. Hopefully he can pull on up and we can go ahead and get started real quick. But before we bring him up, y'all know what I got to do. Hey, Shaquila, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you tuning in every week. Hello, Jen. Thank you for tuning in as well. We appreciate you so much. Hello, Mr. Foster, Anita Foster. Thank you for coming in. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. Hey, Maurice. It's good to see you. Well, not actually see you, but you get the picture. But thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. Make sure you guys share the video. Hello. Hey, Aldrin Shayla. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you so much. Please make sure, guys, you share the video. And we're excited. And we want you guys to make sure that we are coming on up. So let me go ahead and share this video. And I want to also, hey, Portia. Oh, hey, Miss Susie. Thank you for tuning in from the great, we're the great state of Alabama. So Tennessee, you guys are, you got Gatlinburg. So thank y'all for tuning in. I hate you couldn't be here too, Jay, but make sure you share it in the group and let them know. Spike is somewhere in Cyberland. He's trying to get in here. So we're going to take the time to do that. But before we get started, guys, of course, we got to pay these bills. So we'll be right back. Located in downtown DeMarco, a proven leader in law in the Blackbelt, Gibbs and Sellers. Located in downtown DeMarco, a proven leader in law in the Blackbelt, Gibbs and Sellers. In the Blackbelt, Gibbs and Sellers.
Hello, citizens. My name is Christopher Jones. I'm seeking the mayor's office for the great city of Uniontown. For the last 7 years, I've attended city council meetings, spoken with people across the city. I have heard the concerns and have personally seen where improvements need to be made in order for us to move our city forward. As your mayor, I am willing to build a strong local economy, increase youth development, and build solid and sustainable state and federal relationships to aid us in our start of rebuilding our community. Uniontown, it's time for a change. On August 25th, vote for Christopher Jones, the right voice, right now. Paid political advertising to elect Christopher Jones, P.O. Box 1281, Uniontown, Alabama.
Thank you so much to our sponsors. We definitely appreciate you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Spike is having a little technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and just say hello to everybody. Hello. Hey, Vicky, all the way from California. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, Rachel. We appreciate you tuning in tonight. Thank you. Joshua, whoop, whoop. I see you back here from Huntsville. Excited to see tonight's talk. Me too. I'm excited about it too. Make sure you share this with your friends and family. We appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, Rod Thomas. No, he's not running in Greensboro. He's running in Uniontown. And so, yeah. Joshua, you're amazing, Portia. Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it. Appreciate it so much. Well, we're waiting on Spike to come in. You guys tell me where you guys are from. Just a couple of announcements. If you guys are in across the nation, especially here in the great state of Alabama, we have local elections coming up. And we're so excited about municipal elections as well as our November 3rd election as well. But our municipal election is going to be August 25th, 2020. Qualifying starts tomorrow. That is July the 7th. If you are interested in running for mayor or running for city council and you live in Alabama and your municipal elections is this year, this is your time to shine. What great way we can have Joe in office, Joe Jurgensen in office, making these changes that is necessary so we can be able to see and be able to do some things here in our communities. What better way to have great leaders in place to be able to do that? So tonight we're so excited to have our special guest, Spike. Spike, can you hear me? I can hear you, but I cannot see you. There you go. Welcome. It's going to count you in. Hello, Miss Jennifer. All the way in Forkland. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, Miss Angela Dennison, watching from Marion. We appreciate you. Hello, Miss Teresa Atkins, watching from Utah, Alabama. We'll definitely appreciate it. Please make sure that you guys are sharing this video and let people know. Jay said, Portia, our libertarian, her name is even in gold. Yeah, I'm in.
We're happy to have you.
Yes. Hello, Joyce. Thank you so much for tuning in. Spike, I am so excited to talk to you.
I'm very happy too. I'm happy to talk with you too. I'm just sharing it on my social media so everyone can join us on there as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I was a little nervous because you know, Spike, you crump. You know what I mean? You come with it. So Jay, one of my friends, he just had a newborn. And so he usually joins me. He's the one that introduced me to you and Dr. Joe, and to the Libertarian Party. To be honest, one of the things that I'm not satisfied. I've said this when I spoke with her, with who I usually vote with, which is the Democratic Party, the candidate that has been chosen. And so I start researching on my own, and Jay starts sending me things. And the things that I was hearing, the videos that I watch, your show that I've been following. I've learned so much, and I'm the type of person that loves to learn and also educate in the process. So I'm so excited that you are here, and so is the audience. So you got some people here said thank you, Portia, all the way from California.
Oh wow!
You got Sterling coming in from Iowa. You have Cody coming in from Louisiana.
Oh wow, we're getting them from all over.
Yeah, Ryan Jenkins said he's 12 years old from
Ryan
Tennessee.
Jenkins.
Thank you, Ryan, for tuning in.
So Ryan is actually on my campaign team.
Oh, he is? Well,
yeah, he's a superstar. Yeah, he's an absolute superstar. He's fantastic. 12-year-old kid.
He's 12 years old.
He's one of the smartest people you'll talk to. He's a genius. Kid is a genius.
I got to get you on the show so you can encourage some of these young people to get involved in the political process. Deborah Villa from Dallas, Texas. Thank you. Hello, Stacy. How are you? Elisa Hernandez. Hello, Elisa. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Jay said, y'all get ready. Spike is a trip. Yes, he is. Antonio said, yes, Spike. Brad Brown said, hey again, Spike. Red Elmore, I will not say those words. War Eagle is all day. War Eagle is all day. Hello, Sheila Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in. Please, guys, share this video. Joshua says, Spike, thank you for taking the time to do the show with Portia. Us Alabamians need a change for this country.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And people are saying, I like Spike. They're coming in fast, so I'm trying to get a couple of them in there.
Yeah, you're about to get mobbed because I just shared it on my social media.
Now
so,
I see now.
Yeah, it's not going to stop. Yeah.
All right, so let me go ahead and get started. So you guys put your questions in. I'll try to be there. Susie says that she's been a libertarian for 37 years, and I couldn't be more excited for America than I am this year. Spike, what is so different now?
Oh, man. So we've got a lot of, this is the first time, Portia, that we've had people across the political spectrum out in the streets protesting multiple different things. So we've got, people protesting the lockdowns. We've got people protesting police brutality. We've got people protesting against gun control. We've got people protesting against systemic racism. ultimately they're all protesting the same thing. They are protesting the fact that Republicans and Democrats have had exclusive control of every lever of power in this country for over 160 years, and they have used it for their own cynical, self-serving purposes. They have used it coming into office. They have used it for two reasons: to control us and to benefit and enrich themselves and their favored cronies, a relative handful of incredibly powerful, wealthy, politically connected, and well-heeled people who use the force of government for no other reason than to keep all of us down to their own benefit and our direct expense. And so we're seeing people more than ever. The pandemic and the lockdowns were the final straw for a lot of people, not because that lockdown in and of itself was the problem, but it was the final straw where people said, no, this is too much. And of course, marginalized communities, I don't have to tell you, I am pissed off and I'm just watching it. I'm just witnessing it as a well-heeled, financially secure white man watching what is happening in marginalized communities, in poor communities, and in communities of color across this country, and has been building over time. I am as outraged as anyone could be, and I'm just witnessing it. I can't even imagine if I was on the receiving end of it. And what we are witnessing is we are on a precipice. This country is on a precipice where we are facing the culmination of something that has been building for centuries. And we are looking it in the face and saying, enough, this is going to end. It's going to end in our time. And we are going to replace it with a fairer and safer and more free and more equitable and less abusive system than what the Republicans and Democrats have put in front of us.
For years. And one of the things that I love that you said, and this is something that I spoke with Jo when I spoke with her last month, was the fact that that's what I'm tired of. I've gotten, I stopped going back and forth with people online about this because I've made up my mind. I live in the Blackbelt of Alabama. This is a rural part of the state of Alabama. Geographically, it says that it's because of the dark soil. It's great for farming. But the truth of the matter is where majority of the Black people stay in the great state of Alabama. Right. And one of the things that happens here is that it is democratic rule. African-American Democrats have been in leadership for years, and we have not seen any change, and I'm tired of it. Yep. And my thing of it is the same narrative goes on and on. Every election cycle, the emotional push that they put out every election cycle to get you, they're going to keep you down. They're going to bring you back to Jim Crow. And then all this stuff, and then it disappears until it's time for another election cycle.
Exactly.
And I'm tired of it. And for Joe Biden to even fix his mouth, to even say, and I said this last time, to even fix his mouth to say, you're not, first of all, and I've said this publicly, I've said this in private conversation, as an African-American, my culture is not tied to a political party. I can vote for an individual based on what I think that person can do to better my life. And it's not because I'm ignorant. It's not because I'm a traitor against my race. It's simply because I want better for my community. And I think that that's what I see in you guys. Am I accurate?
You are accurate. I want to go back to Joe Biden for a second.
Okay.
You were talking about a man who had the nerve and the gall to go on the Breakfast Club and say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. Okay, let's just dial back the insanity for a moment of an old white man saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. Let's talk about who, let's just end the outrage to that and look at who we're talking about. This is a man who for 30 years cozied up with segregationists in order to be able to advance his career. Okay, it wasn't once or twice that he would help them to oppose busing or stop or slow down integration and the ending of forced segregation. This is a man who in interviews in 1977, 12 years after integration had begun its process, he said that he was against integration because he didn't want his children to grow up in a racial jungle.
Right. That's
what even is that?
Yeah.
This is the mindset of this man, a man who now tells his amazing, he tells his heartwarming corn pop story where it ends with him threatening to hang a Black man from a chain. And he tells this story in front of hundreds of Black people, and they're all sitting there like, did he just say that? And then he goes, yep, you got to vote for me because I'm a Democrat. That is the level of political discourse in this country that the Democratic Party can show up. And Republicans do it to poor white people too. They do it the same thing. It is two parts of the same bird who are going around and speaking to their bases. Republicans speak to their bases, Democrats speak to their bases, and then once they get elected, they go right back to working together to screw all of us.
Everybody. And they're all working, like you said earlier, for the same people.
The same people.
One message for Wall Street, then you have another one for the people. But you want me to believe that you care about me. You can't care about me when you're telling the same people the same thing, and you're sitting there blaming each other with these smoke screens and distraction on both sides of the aisle for no apparent reason.
Exactly.
When you're thinking about the pandemic, I think a lot of people are tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are tired of it. And people are getting fed up with it. What would be your solution to make people feel safe? What is the plan to kind of make people still feel safe and also protect themselves as it relates to what's been going on?
Absolutely. So first, Portia, do you mind if I go back to why we even got here in the first place with COVID-19? Why we're doing worse than any other country on the planet right now?
Right.
For the first 6 to 8 weeks that COVID-19 was here, it was illegal to test or treat COVID patients. So for the first 6 to 8 weeks, you had patients coming into their doctors and saying, "Doc, I don't feel too hot, and I just got back from Wuhan, China, or Hubei province in China, and I'm not feeling too good, and I'm seeing this stuff on TV about this coronavirus thing. I'm worried I might have it." It was illegal for medical professionals to test for it because the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, had a ridiculous regulation in place that said if you want to test for a new virus, and COVID-19 was a new virus, you had to go through a months-long process to get approval to make test kits. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's bad. And so it gets worse. So thankfully, there were a handful of doctors like Dr. Helen Chu at University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle and others throughout the country who, when those patients came in, they said, "Yeah, screw that regulation. My Hippocratic oath matters more than some stupid sheet of paper. I'm going to break the law." And so they made the test kits, which apparently, if you know how to do such a thing, it's relatively simple, unless you're the government. And so they made the test kits. They tested people. Some of them came back positive. We now knew that COVID-19 was here. It was not on its way here. It was already here in Seattle, Dallas, Boston, and parts of California and other places as well. And so they went to the CDC and they said, "Hey, listen, we know it's illegal, but we tested and it's already here." Do you know what the federal government, the people who say that they are in charge of our safety, you know what they said, Portia? They said, destroy those test kits. Tell no one. Send those patients home and don't tell them they have anything. This is a virus that we're now told that all of us have to wear face masks and stay 6 feet away from each other. They told them to go home and live their lives as normal. Thank God that a handful of those doctors, like Dr. Chu, again broke the law, and in an incredible act of civil disobedience, they released that illegal information to the public and let us all know it was here. And that forced the hand of the CDC after nearly 2 months of letting it run completely undetected in this country. And this is not black helicopter stuff. If you type in Dr. Helen Chu, COVID-19 testing, it's all there. It's on the LA Times, New York Times. But the way they phrase it, if you read the articles, they go, the government didn't move quickly enough. No. They did not move quickly enough. They made it illegal for medical professionals to treat sick people. And we now are dealing with a pandemic that is unlike anything humankind has dealt with in the modern era as a direct result of the government literally telling medical professionals not to do their job in the most crucial time for them to do so. And so now we are facing an unprecedented pandemic where states are now telling everyone to stay home, don't go and visit your family, don't go to small businesses, don't go to the park, don't go to the beach, don't go to church, go to Walmart, go to Target. Go to Costco. Hundreds of you all crowd into this building real close together where it's safe. But don't go anywhere else. Stay home and watch Netflix and spend on Amazon. Go give all of your money to big businesses. And the big businesses that you can't go to right now, the airlines and the hotels and so forth, we'll just give them trillions of dollars in bailouts of your money. And we'll give you $1,200 of your own money and tell you stay home forever until you get further notice. And if you don't listen to us, we will put you in a jail where you are almost certain to get COVID-19. And the threat there is very explicit, Portia. If you do not listen to us, we will infect you. That is what a government put in charge of our health looks like.
That is insanity.
Yep.
What is the solution?
The solution is we get rid of all of that. The Centers for Disease Control exists for two reasons: to stop medical professionals from being able to do their job and to enrich the cronies who put them in place. We get rid of all of that. We put it back in the hands of the medical professionals whose job it is to test and treat and contain us and to innovate. We put it back in the hands of innovators to make new types of drugs. Did you know that patent protections allow pharmaceutical companies to take something like insulin or epinephrine, drugs that are absolutely necessary for people to be alive and have been around for over 100 years and cost fractions of a penny to make. But because they have their patent protection, no one else can make it. And if no one else can make it, I can charge whatever I want. Jack the price up 1,000 times. All of that goes. The patent protections for, generic drugs that should have been around, should have gone away long ago, those all end. The ban on you being able to go to another country and buy a drug you're prescribed to that's legal there and legal here, but it's illegal for you to cross the border because to protect the profits of those pharmaceutical companies, all of that ends. Certificate of need laws, where if you want to build a new hospital or a wing to a hospital or a medical center, you have to beg and scrape local municipalities for the permission to build it there, even though the people there already want it, and the municipalities themselves don't want to have to go through this process, but the federal government makes them in order to keep large companies like Kaiser Permanente and Atrium and other large companies from having to have new competition. All of that goes away. We put the power back in the hands of the people, and we allow the spontaneous nature of human action in a market set free and a people set free with the power back in their hands to do what needs to be done, which government will never do and will actually impede us from being able to do.
Why are they so afraid that we can't think and do for ourselves?
It's not that. They know we can do for ourselves. They don't want us to do for ourselves.
They don't want us to do for ourselves.
It's way worse than that, Portia. This isn't like, oh, they think we're stupid. No, they know that if left to our own devices, we will be far better off. And that's the problem to them. Because if we're far better off, we don't need them.
We don't need you, right?
If we're far better off, we don't need their cronies that put them in office.
Yeah.
If we're far better off, they can go away and it doesn't matter to us. And in fact, not only can they go away, we'll make them go away. We'll look at the crimes they've committed and say, no, excuse me, you don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to treat us this way. We remove them from office. And then we find if they have actually done like abuses to us, we hold them accountable. We get rid of qualified immunity so that they can actually be sued and held accountable for what they do, which not only holds them accountable for what they did, but it acts as a deterrent for anyone else, police officers, government officials, politicians, from ever doing that again. It disincentivizes bad behavior. They know that. They want that to continue. That's what they want. They know that we would be far better off. They tell us that we wouldn't be better off, but that's what all abusers do. That's what all gaslighters do. They abuse you. It's a large mass abusive relationship where a gun is held to our heads and we are told, if it wasn't for me, you'd be nothing. That's what it is. Look at what they're doing with the mask. The problem's your fault. You won't wear a mask. You go outside and get within 6 feet of people. You're the problem. How about the fact that they didn't let medical professionals test for it, Portia? That's the problem. It's not us trying to live our lives. It's them. They created this. They do it with pollution. You're the problem. You eat too much beef. Your car isn't a hybrid. That you leave your lights on when you're not in the room. You don't recycle enough. That's the problem. They don't talk about the fact that they use the EPA to protect polluting major mega billion-dollar companies and protect them against. They indemnify them against lawsuits so that we can't sue them for the trillions of dollars in damage they do to our ecosystem and our ecology. What they do is they hit them with these ridiculous slap on the wrist fines, and then they put the cost of the cleanup on us, the people who are suffering the damage. But then they tell us that we're the problem. You don't recycle.
That's in Uniontown, Alabama. With the landfill. They had the big coal ash spill up in Tennessee. It was poisonous in Tennessee.
Exactly.
They broke down to a poor black area, and some kind of way, some magic dust hit the coal ash, and it's no longer poisonous when it hits Uniontown, Alabama. And then on top of that, here's the other killer part of it. You had Democrat, listen to me, who voted that coal ash wasn't poison. It is poisonous everywhere else, but in Uniontown, Alabama,
it's poison everywhere else except for a poor black community that has no means to get rid of it.
It's not poisonous at all. There, you go 2 hours away in Shelby County, they had another spill with a big company here, Alabama Power, and then it's poisonous there.
Poisonous there,
but in
yeah.
Uniontown,
Poisonous to white people. It's poisonous to well-heeled white people. Poor black people, you're immune to it. It's
right.
melanin. It's melanin. Melanin is actually a proven coal ash deterrent. No, it's not true. But
I know it's definitely not true.
Here, let's talk about another thing Black Democrats did in recent memory, the crack epidemic, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so here you had the federal government was using the CIA to bring drugs into Black communities in order to fund the Nicaraguan Contras against a government that they didn't like, okay? This is how bad it is. Then they turn around and they tell the Black Democrats, look what's happening to your communities. People are dying left and right. Addiction is through the roof. They got the Black Democrats, the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, for those who don't know what that is. They got them to go and begged Ronald Reagan to pass the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. That's how they started. It started with this weird coalition of law and order Republicans who had no problem with locking up as many Black people as they possibly could. And the Congressional Black Caucus who went to Ronald Reagan and said, please lock up more Black people. And he went, oh, okay. That's how we got that. That was with the imprimatur of the CBC. Now, it was because they were sold a bad bill of goods. They were told that the only way to stop this was to stop the drug dealers in their communities. But they knew. Anyone in DC knows what happens when you pass a new law. It is disproportionately enforced against marginalized communities, the poor, people of color, gender and sexual minorities, immigrants, religious and ethnic minorities, the homeless. It's disproportionately enforced. It's not put on me. Yes. It's not put on me. I'm much more likely to smoke. I've been sober for 14 years, but I'm much more likely to be someone who smokes weed than the average Black guy. And yet the average Black guy is more than 4 times more likely to be in jail on a drug possession charge, not a drug sales charge, a drug possession charge. I get a slap on the wrist. I get a diversion program, but he's been criminalized since he was a kid. So now he's got all these stupid things on his record that don't even matter. And they go, oh, well, he's a career criminal. We got to throw him in jail, ruin his life. That is what this system is built on. The CBC knows it. Democrats know it. Republicans know it. They all play their part in this cynical shell game of making you think you have options between them. You do not. They are the Republican Party. They bring you endless subjugation.
The Republican Party.
The Republican Party. Endless subjugation.
I'm sorry. Jay White, a great question to come from that. He says, Spike, Alabama is a red state and has deep blue pockets in certain counties. Mm-hmm. What is your message to reach both sides?
You're all being screwed. You're all being lied to. And it doesn't matter which side you vote for because they're all going to give you the same thing. Donald Trump came into office on a promise of reducing the size of government. He's done the opposite. He said he was going to reduce the deficit. He has spent more money and run up more debt than every other president before him in 4 years. Barack Obama had the previous record. It took him 8 years to do that. Donald Trump's done it in 4 years. He said he was going to lower taxes. Once you factor in tariffs, the average tax burden on the average American household is either 13 or 23% higher than it was when he entered into office. He said he would end the wars. There are 15,000 more troops overseas than there were when he came into office. He said that he would end us getting involved in these entangling alliances. He has continued the genocide in Yemen, where I don't know if you've heard of this, the federal government, the U.S. government through the Department of Defense is bankrolling the Saudi government and Al-Qaeda in their fight against the Yemeni people that has killed over 250,000 civilians, both from bombings and starvation. And it is continuing now. At its current rate, it will end up killing over 1 million people by the time Trump leaves office. And they're doing it. Why? Because they were told by defense experts that it would hurt Iran's standing in the region. It's a literal genocide. It started under Obama. It has continued under Trump.
Isn't that the same thing that Bush said against Ahmadinejad when he was the president of Iran? Wasn't it the same story that they told then?
Ahmadinejad, yeah.
Wasn't it the same thing that they said? So
the groundwork for Yemen started under Bush. The actual fighting didn't start under Bush. The groundwork for the actual program started under Bush, but it was actually the actual fighting itself that was done by the Saudis and Al-Qaeda. Remember Al-Qaeda? We were told that we have to stop them at all costs. We're bankrolling them.
Sorry.
We are bankrolling them. So this is not only genocide, it's treason. And this has happened under Bush and under Trump. You know how we talk a lot about abusive police officers, and then we get angry that so Derek Chauvin, who kneeled on George Floyd's neck, And we get so angry that that cop stood by for 8 minutes while that happened. Joe Biden stood by for 8 years while Barack Obama committed a genocide in Yemen. Mike Pence has stood there for 4 years while Donald Trump has continued that genocide. This is what comes from the Republicrats, and it does not end. They must be removed.
I appreciate you sharing the light on that, because of course, you're not going to hear this in mainstream.
Oh, of course not.
Of course not. But at the same time, these are things that people need to know about what's happening. I wanted to also discuss talking about the changes that are happening. School is getting ready to come back in certain areas. Some areas it isn't, but in Alabama, they're getting ready to do that. One of the things that Joe talked about in the last time that she was here was putting the power back into privatizing the education.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on what's happening now? And should kids go back to school now? What are your thoughts on preparing parents to prepare their kids to get back into the flow of things, because they've been out since March, and things like that? What are your thoughts on that?
So let's. The first part of your question was about putting the power back in the hands of parents. I want to talk about that first, because that leads into the second thing. In the 1970s, the Department of Education was created, and the reason it was created, and it was created by both Republicans and Democrats working together on bipartisan legislature, signed into law by a Republican. The reason they signed it was because the literacy rate was too low. We've spent nearly $2 trillion in almost 50 years, and it's gone down. The literacy rate is lower now than it was when the Department of Education came into office. They also said that the problem was that there were too many students per teacher. Well, that's also gone up. There's more students per teacher. So we didn't really see a growth in the number of teachers. We saw a growth in administrators, bureaucrats. So two things happen. Once again, this is what happens when government gets involved. Government imposes more costs and puts in burdens to make it harder to for the actual professionals to do their job. And then they enrich themselves and their favored cronies. So you have mega billion-dollar companies that go straight to the federal government. They don't go to the individual school boards and try to sell their program as working well. They go straight to the federal government without any proof and go, pass this, fund this, we need this standardized testing, giving Ritalin to endless streams of kids. They just dump their programs directly at the top without having to prove it works, because politicians, you don't have to prove it works. You just have to prove that you'll fill their campaign coffer. Yeah. And so that's it. That's all you got to prove. That's easy to prove. You just got to write a check and you just prove that. And so that is what has happened, is again, another cynical power grab. We believe in putting the power of education decisions back in the hands of parents and teachers for the betterment of the children, where it always belonged. Now, to your specific answer on whether or not the schools should reopen, if you allow the federal government to make that decision, they will make a top across the board decision. They will say whether you live in an absolute hot spot or whether you live in an area where maybe 5 people have gotten COVID, you all have to do the same thing. This is a perfect example of how one size fits all, even if it's well-intended, which it usually is not. But even if it's well-intended, it's going to end well. Because if you try to use the same solution for an area that has like next to no one with COVID, because everyone's always socially distancing because there's like 50 people in a huge town, right? It's not going to work the same as in New York City or Miami or LA and whatever is, and they usually just do the most restrictive version. So now you've got, some area where there's maybe 20 kids, no one has COVID, and they're like, waiting to go back to school forever because New York City still has it bad. Yeah. Let the individual schools and school districts and communities decide for themselves, not just on education, but on policing, on everything. How they want their community to look should be paramount above anything else. What I think it should look like, what you think it should look like if you don't live there, it's definitely what the bureaucrats and the cronies and the politicians think it should look like. Let the people living there decide what their community looks like. They know far better than
anybody else. That's right. That's right. That you didn't preach today. That sounds like some Baptist preaching right there.
Well, listen, I live in between an AME church and a First Baptist church. My condo's right between. Yeah, so I got it.
Laura Jameson said, how can we protect children who have special needs?
So this is another perfect thing. Different areas have different levels of number of children with special needs. The children in any situation that is imposed by government, it is those with the least means for themselves who are always left behind first. We see that with policing. The people, those who are poor, those who are people of color, those who are immigrants, people who don't have the financial or social means to try to exert themselves and say, no, you have to treat me better, and have to resort to allying with people who do have power and who do have institutional power and wealth. They're the ones who are always get the bad end of the stick. Do you know the phrase "canary in the coal mine"? That yeah. These are the canaries in the coal mine. In the school system, it is, special needs people that are often the canaries in the coal mine. And if you try to impose some kind of federal system on them, it's not going to work. Special needs education is so specific to someone's specific special needs that it really needs to be decided by teachers. And when I say this, because a lot of times when I say this, people go, well, you just don't have a plan. No, I don't. I'm not an expert in these things. And we need to stop pretending that politicians are experts. They're not. They're often pretty stupid, actually. They're good at pandering and lying and cheating on their spouses and doing drugs and hiding scandals and having people killed and visiting Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. That's what they're good at. So the idea that we should be getting ideas from them and listening to what they have to say, I like to think that I know a little bit about everything. Not enough to decide what your special needs children's education should look like. That should be decided by professionals in that field, in your specific community where it's needed. Because anything else is going to be an imposition on you. Anything else is going to be you being robbed to pay for an outcome that is guaranteed and assured to be harmful and inequitable and abusive.
All right, Michael Way, I think he answered your question. What program do you want to focus on as our vice president? I think he actually answered it, unless you wanted to add something else to that.
Biggest program, End the Wars, Bring the Troops Home, End the War on Drugs, End Civil Asset Forfeiture, and Qualified Immunity, and systemic racism by addressing the key points that have led to such a vast gap in wealth and power between people of color and white people. Two groups of people that have largely been here for the same period of time, but have suffered entirely different treatment even up until now. And I mean, we could do an entire show. I have to do this. Okay, so when this comes up, I'm sorry, and I even brought it up. I have to do this.
Okay.
I don't need to tell you your history. There are people who are watching who need to be told this history.
Okay.
Because we are often told things like, well, I understand that Black people have had it hard, but I've had it hard too. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about individual treatment or the fact that white people also have struggles in life. We're talking about a systemic thing. So let's break that down for a moment.
Sure.
Black people were brought here in chains. They were stripped of their names. They were stripped of their culture. They were stripped of their religions. They were stripped of their identities. They were stripped of their language. They were beaten and even tortured and killed if they tried to exert any of these things, so that within a few generations, that was completely erased. They were given no new identity. They were treated as cattle. They were robbed of their labor for nearly just over 250 years. When that ended, they were encouraged to stay on those plantations and continue doing it in exchange for scrip, not actual money, but scrip, where it was like, okay, well, I'll give you food if you keep working. It was basically the same system. At the same time, they were denied their right to keep and bear arms so that they couldn't fight against the Klan, who routinely murdered them just because they were mad that they couldn't continue owning them as cattle. Okay. Then during that same time, shortly after, there was a big land giveaway. And we don't talk about this a lot, but all of the people that live in the Midwest, all of that was big land giveaways that started under Lincoln and continued for a couple presidents after that, went on for about 30 years. It was against the law for Black people to qualify to apply for those land giveaways. So here you had Black people who were robbed of everything they had and told to stay put where they were. And then they watched as people who just got here were given land that was stolen from the natives, incidentally. Then, moving forward from that, continue to be treated poorly under Jim Crow laws, being robbed of their basic rights to vote, to be able to exercise their influence, again, to be able to keep and bear arms. Even in the midst of that, people were able to, you want to talk about Black excellence. You had communities who, in the midst of that, still thrived, still created millionaires, still created Black Wall Street, still created the Harlem Renaissance. And anytime it got a little bit too big for its britches, here came systemic destruction of it. Not just angry white people burning it down, government officials firebombing cities to destroy them, to make sure that these Black people knew they could not do that. Do not get too big. Do not, stay humble.
Know your place.
Know your place. Then what do we have? We have, after finally enough white people say, yeah, I guess we should treat black people well. Then they pass, after decades of brutalization, they pass the Civil Rights Act, which now gives them legal, largely the same. Actually, before that. Okay, so World War II happens. This is another thing we forget. There were 2 times that white people were given trillions, tens of trillions of dollars in free equity, and black people were told, you stay here, you don't get any of that.
Right.
So during World War II, everyone was brought into the cities to partake in the war effort, to build in the factories. Black people were put in substandard temporary housing because it was always intended that they would be sent back home to the sharecropping neighborhoods they lived in the South. And white people were put in a permanent public housing in the inner cities. Once the war was over and they realized that the southern states did not want those black people back, they went, uh-oh, now we got all these black people. What are we going to do? We don't want them living next to white people. And look at all these industries here. Black people are actually coming ahead. 1950s, early 1960s, black people actually started having a good quality of life because they lived right next to the factories. So you know what they did? They created the Fair Housing Act. They created massive suburban neighborhoods, and they gave them away to white people. They had white people go, and there are still in Levittown, New York, and other FHA communities, the original suburbs in this country, the deeds still say, it's not enforceable anymore, but the deeds still say that it can only be sold and resold and rented to white people. Do you know why they did that, Portia? Because that was the only way that the Dixiecrat Southern senators would sign off on it, was if they didn't allow black people. So you know what they did? They put the white people in the suburbs for almost for free. They gave them houses for $8,000, which is like 80 grand today. Yeah. Those were houses that back then were worth at least $20,000 or $30,000. Instant equity. They were given instant equity, and then they moved all the factories and all the working and industrialization into the suburbs so that white people had gainful employment, and they left the black people in the inner cities with no jobs. Then they introduced the war on drugs so that they could criminalize black people and put them in prisons because they never wanted them to be free in any capacity. Right. That is coming into what we have now. That is the history. Coming up even into the 1980s and 1990s with Joe Biden's 1994 tough on crime bill. It did not stop. So when we are talking about fixing systemic racism, we're not talking about telling white people they have to like black people. We aren't talking about telling white people that you should feel guilty about being white in slavery. We are talking about correcting and fixing an ongoing harm that never ended and only became more insidious and more harmful and more subtle in its implementation, but not in its actual outcome. And it gets blamed on black culture. What is black culture but a culture imposed on black people by white supremacists?
That is correct.
So we have to deal with that systemic problem. And we do that first by fixing the harm. You can't, if I'm a doctor and you come in and go, Doc, I got this really bad gash, and I see that you're still actively being stabbed, obviously I have to stop the stabbing before I can fix the gash. So we end the war on drugs. We end civil asset forfeiture. We end no-knock raids that killed Breonna Taylor and Duncan Lemp. We end all of those things. We end qualified immunity so that government officials are finally held accountable, and so that now we can actually reward good policing and punish bad policing and deter bad people from becoming police. Then once we fix the harm, now we address the fact that the government sits on vast reserves of wealth and land.
Wow.
They need to get rid of it, and they need to give it to who they need to give that money to who it belonged to, because there were people who were completely left out of that process, and that needs to be corrected. And if we call it reparations, fine. But this kind of reparations, it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. It actually saves the taxpayer because they're no longer paying for government upkeep of land and wealth that they are not using. So it fixes the problem of making government smaller. It puts money directly in the hands of the descendants of African chattel slaves. It fixes a system, or at least ameliorates the outcomes of systemic problems that have been enforced on the black community. And it puts government in its proper place, which is much smaller than it is right now.
Smaller than it needs to be. And not just saying that, actually showing it. I think that this is a great time to bring in this conversation as it relates to immigration. Spike, this is from Joshua. Spike, how would you and Dr. Joe treat immigration? I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. Immigration, more importantly, nationalization. My white parents were immigrants. from Mexico who nationalized. The fact it can cost up to $25,000 and the time it takes can be such a burden is just insane. I just want to throw this in there real quick before you answer. He's absolutely right. My coworker Maria, she's watching, and one of the things that I could not understand is that her and her family were taking trips to Miami, and I'm like, why are y'all going there? She was like, well, my mom has to get her work visa and all this stuff. And they'll have to pay this $5,000, $5,000. And I'm like, this is a lot of money that your mom been paying for over 15 years. When is it going to stop? And you're thinking about that these people, a lot of people do not know this, but in North Alabama, they have a huge population of Latinos. When HB 56 hit, which is a House bill here in Alabama passed, that basically said that all people of Latino descent, except for housemaids and people that do yards, like that's literally in the bill.
They literally said it.
They literally said that in the bill, had to leave the state. And so they went to North Alabama, which is safe haven, because they had a lot of chicken plants up there. And so they became the workforce of that particular community. And so you have a lot of people that have the work, but they're paying out thousands and thousands of dollars just to work, not legalization, not nationalization, but just to
stay there, to stay there and work.
And so, and they're paying taxes, because all this stuff about they don't pay the taxes. It's a lie. They get taxes, they get federal taxes taken out their check and state taxes. They cannot vote, and they're paying $1,000 for a work visa. What are your thoughts? And I just wanted to add that to Josh. Josh, thank you for bringing that up. What are your thoughts on that?
Immigration controls are a violation of your as an American, your natural right to host, hire, and house whomever you wish on your property, and it's a violation of your right to travel to properties where you are welcome. Let's be very clear about something. This country was intended. All of the problems that started with this country. I'm not saying everything the founders said was right or correct. They were right on this one. One of the reasons given in their Declaration of Independence for declaring independence from the British Crown was that King George was restricting the migration into the colonies by people who wanted to move here. For the first 100 years of the existence of the United States of America under the Constitution, because there is no mention of immigration in the Constitution, only naturalization, only becoming a citizen, nothing about saying whether you can come here or not. Okay. So for the first 100 years, if people wanted to come here, they could come here. In fact, they were able to take part in that land giveaway we were just talking about. I mean, they were you wanted to come here, fine, come here. During that time, the United States expanded went from being some like agricultural backwater that people laughed at to being the most powerful and prosperous economy on the planet, bar none, during that time. So all the stuff that we're told is going to happen if we allow people to come and go as they please, that if people are allowed to cross national lines into the U.S. the same way we cross county and state and city lines every single day without even thinking of it, that there will be this havoc and, people will come and take everything from that's not true. That's not what ends up happening. And so the original immigration laws were designed to keep Chinese people out because we were scared that there were more of them than us, and they were all going to come here and take over our country. They were coming here to work, and there weren't nearly that many here. But so they passed the first Chinese Exclusion Acts. When my ancestors on my dad's side came here in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they said the same thing about them that they're saying about them now. They're coming here with their foreign ways and their foreign religions, because they were Jewish, and they're coming. They got their foreign ways, and they're dirty, and they're prone to crime, and they're lazy, and they don't work. All a bunch of garbage. It's the same stuff that we hear over and over again. When an immigrant makes more than someone who's here, they say they're taking the good jobs. When they make less than the people who come here that are already here, they say, look, they're undercutting our wages. When they come and work harder than the people who are here, we go, we can't compete with them. When they come and work not as hard as the people that are here, we go, oh, look, they're lazy. They can't win. My wife's from Canada, and she's an absolute beautiful goddess of a woman. And so I was very happy to have her to do whatever it took to bring her over here, because she's all mine and I don't care. But
that's right. Claim your back.
But it cost us thousands. I don't even like counting how many thousands of dollars it cost us. I don't like counting how many years it took us, how many hundreds, thousands of hours. She's from Canada. She's not from like some far-flung country. She's from Canada. We can drive there. Their street signs look the same. Like, you almost kind of forget you're in another country when you're there. But they had to go through the process, and it was ridiculous. She had no criminal record. She had no health problems. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. They asked her the stupidest questions. They asked her, are you a member of the Nazi Party? My wife's black. They said, "Are you a member of the Nazi Party?"
Seriously?
And she said, so this is how they said, "Are you a member of the Nazi Party?" She said, "I'm black and my husband's Jewish." They said, ma'am, your husband can be a Nazi if he wants to. He was born here. And they still made her answer it. They went, "So are you a member of the Nazi Party?" And she went, "No." And they went, "Okay, next question." That's how ridiculous this system is. Thousands of dollars, I think tens of thousands. Like, I try not to remember how much it was. And it's a ridiculous process. Why? So that government can tell people if they're allowed to be here, not if they're a threat or if there's, they're sick or something like that, but just if they can even be here to work and to contribute and to help this economy grow. The hell business is it of theirs? So what the Libertarian Party believes is that the free flow of goods and services, people should be able to associate with whomever they wish. And if you create a system that tries to keep people out, we end up with the police state that we have, and it only keeps growing. We have to have an ID with our biometrics on it so they can check to make sure we're supposed to be here. This ridiculous, these concentration camps they're building on the border, and not just on the border, but in immigration detention camps throughout the country. The Border Patrol exerts the ability to stop anyone without any cause and check their papers for up to 100 miles from the border. You have no Fourth Amendment rights if you're within 100 miles of the border. And I think even the shorelines as well.
That's the dumbest stuff I ever heard.
And it still hasn't stopped people from coming here illegally because coyotes pay off Border Patrol agents. They're always going to come here. It doesn't matter how bad of a surveillance state and police state you create to try to keep them out. They're still going to find ways in here because you made it more expensive to come here by creating a black market, which means that the coyotes and the human smugglers are going to be able to make that much more money off of it, which means they can continue bribing Border Patrol agents, which means now they're not just bringing over poor people that want to work. They're bringing over children for the sex trade. They're bringing over drugs and illegal drugs and guns and everything else because you've created that market. You created a black market and you empowered cartels who go around murdering everyone because they don't care what the laws are. If you remove that and you make it every bit as easy to cross the line from Mexico into the U.S. as it is to cross the line from North Carolina into South Carolina or Alabama into Mississippi or whatever else, there's not going to be a flood of people coming here to take our wealth. Where you live right now, you're within about 500 miles of a zip code in Southern Florida that has a per person wealth that's something like 1,000 times higher than where most of us live. 1,000 times.
Wow.
And yet, none of us are moving there. There's no restriction. There's no restriction stopping us from moving there. There's nothing stopping us from moving there. The only reason we don't move there, we're relatively comfortable where we are. Why would we move there? They're not going to move over here just to know that the reason most of them are moving is because the U.S. military and intelligence services are destabilizing their countries and governments back home and forcing them to flee the political instability that's been created by our military industrial complex. If we stop that and we stop the war on drugs, they're not going to move. Yeah, they're poorer compared to us, but they're comfortable there. They weren't moving before the bombing started and the political assassination started and locking entire communities in prisons started. They are fleeing violence that was started by our government. You stop all of that, they're not even going to want to come here in the first place.
I tell you, you have, my friend Gloria, her husband had to go through that process, and the things that she told me that they asked him, I just was like, what the ham sandwich did they have to do with
nothing? Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, they went through the process, they paid the money and things like that. And he's a working citizen. And I think it's important for us to understand that when I see these individuals, people saying, oh, they're taking all our welfare. They can't even get it. Like they can't even get the health care.
Qualify.
That's a false narrative. And my thing is, and all you have to do is sit down and have conversations with individuals so you can be able to find these things out, and your mind will be blown about it. Now, here's some serious questions that people are asking. I think is important. I see you guys, it's happening so fast, guys.
I'm seeing it on the side here. It's coming in hard and fast.
Yeah, it's coming in harder. But one of the questions was, what do we have to do to get you and Joe to the main stage?
Absolutely. So in order for us to, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I said, people need to hear you.
Okay. No, I agree. Listen, you met Joe. You already had Joe on your program here, Portia. If you get Joe Jorgensen in front of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, two men who can barely form a coherent sentence between the two of them and who are emblematic and a personification of everything that's wrong with government and with the two major parties. And you have her in the middle there, Joe Jorgensen, an absolutely brilliant self-made entrepreneur, a woman who's ready to lead from day one, someone who's able to break down, senior lecturer, someone who's able to break down complex ideas in a way that are relatable to everyday Americans, someone who's going to be able to case by case and point by point and measure by measure demonstrate how the Republicans and the Democrats and Donald Trump and Joe Biden have created the system that we live under and have created the problems that we live under, and how common sense libertarian solutions are the way forward. And you put me in between Mike Pence and probably Kamala Harris. I get to ask Mike Pence if he still thinks the government should be electrocuting gay people, which is what he used to think. And also I then get to ask I get to ask Kamala Harris about that time when she illegally withheld exculpatory evidence in a capital murder case.
Please answer that.
Judge.
People never mind, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, locked up a lot of black people as a prosecutor. No rehabilitation. None of that stuff under her leadership. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
The most brutal state prosecutor in recent memory, who seemed to have a special penchant for locking up black people. She locked up something like, I forget the number, but it was tens of thousands of single mothers because their 18-year-old kids were truant from school. They had no control of their kids. Their kids often weren't even living with them anymore. They were in their senior year, and she was locking up single mothers who then wouldn't qualify for the assistance that they needed. That's the kind of woman Kamala Harris is. So here we go. Here we go with, okay, so a judge ordered her, when she was a prosecutor, she was prosecuting a capital murder case. You sounds like you already know this, but for those who don't know, a judge ordered her to release evidence that would demonstrate what both the judge and Kamala Harris, the prosecutor, knew, and the defense knew, was that this guy didn't do it. She was sitting on evidence that would prove him not guilty. She was so hard to try to have him executed that she withheld it and tried to suppress that evidence illegally. Thankfully, they were able to get her to do it, and that man ended up not being executed. And so I can't wait to ask her about that and say, so how do you consider that something other than attempted murder? So if you get us on that debate stage, we blow this whole damn thing up. Okay? So they now realize this whole, you're throwing your vote away for a third party. No.
Yeah,
you're throwing your vote. It's
know,
over.
Your vote for the libertarian portion, just like you voted for Trump. No, that's the famous line of everybody.
You get us on that debate stage, that's all over. Now you have people saying it's a vote thrown away to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. It's a vote thrown away not to vote for Joe Jorgensen. So what it takes to get us on that debate stage, we have to get 15% or more in 5 reputable opinion polls. So Gallup, New York Times, CNN, Quinnipiac, like the big scientific polls where they do random sampling, telephone polls and email polls and so forth. So in 2016, Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, who were the last libertarian presidential and vice presidential nominees in 2016, they got 13% and 11%. So they came they came so close to actually getting on that stage. Okay. What's happened in the last 4 years? Americans' distrust of the Republicans and Democrats are at all-time highs. Their hatred of government are at all-time highs. There was a recent opinion poll, and we're not advocating for this. There is a recent opinion poll from Newsweek. This was shortly after George Floyd was murdered and the protesting and riots started in Minneapolis. They asked the American public if they thought it was acceptable for the Minneapolis Police Department to be burned to the ground in retaliation for George Floyd's murder. 54% of Americans said yes.
Wow.
We're not advocating for burning anything down. I am saying that the American public is at a very special level of we aren't trying to hurt you. Just come on outside. This is like the American people are at a whole different level of hatred of government right now than they've ever been. And also during that 4 years, social media has that much more influence over the conversation, and the dying mainstream media that tries to keep us out has that much less control. We believe that's the difference to get us on that debate stage. So the best thing that you can do, tell your friends, even if they're not ready to vote for us, just say you'll vote for us. If you get a call from an opinion poll asking who you're voting for, say Joe Jorgensen. Even if we're not asking you to vote. We understand if you think I have to stop this one I have to vote for this one to stop this one. That's fine. Just get us on that debate stage, because we all know if we get her on that debate stage, it's all over. The Republicans are going to have nowhere to go. They're not going to be able to do their left-right rope-a-dope they do, because Donald Trump can say, you're terrible and you're terrible. And Joe Biden can say, no, you're terrible. And Joe Biden and Joe Jorgensen can go, yeah, you're both terrible. And here's why, and break it down. So we get her on that debate stage. It's all over. We get elected. All the stuff we're talking about ends, and we can start building a future for our country and our people. And when I say our people, I mean the people living in this country, because for far too long, we have been divided against each other and told that there is that because of the harms that have been done to different communities, that we have to stay stratified and divided from each other. I reject that. We are human beings. I'm not trying to say, I'm colorblind or I don't recognize race. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying colorblind. I'm saying we are all human beings. We are all our people. We are all humans who need to work together. And we can do that with Joe Jorgensen in the White House. And that takes the 15%. So if you get a call from Gallup saying, who you voting for? Say Joe Jorgensen.
I already have. MSNBC has a poll out right now. If you go on their website, and they shared it in one of your groups, one of the Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen groups. And when I saw it, it said, would you vote for a third party candidate? And 80,000 people said yes. So yeah, those type of polls is what he's talking about. If you see them, just stop it. I know Facebook been putting them in people's feeds because they're seeing the momentum, and you're seeing people saying that like those two people cannot be out of 330 million Americans. This cannot be the best.
How are these our choices? 340, 330, whatever. You get two choices. They both suck. Why?
Yeah, right. Why? This is all we got. This is
it. Imagine you go to a restaurant. You go to like the finest buffet restaurant, and they go in and they go, we got fish sticks and hot dogs, and they've both been out for like a week, and you probably shouldn't eat them. Those are your choices. And you were looking around, and you see, baked salmon, and you see these big roasts, and you see all this stuff and macaroni and rolls, and you go, I can't have any of that. No, it's just these two terrible choices that might kill you. You might die if you eat it. Those are your only choices.
You got to.
You just have to. Oh, you wanted the salmon? No, that's you're throwing it away if you want the salmon. That's a choice thrown away.
Jay Wise has asked this question 700 times, so please answer this. He says, Spike, this is totally off subject, by the way.
Okay.
He says, Spike, explain to the Alabama folk, especially the people in the Blackbelt, which I am, why the Libertarian Party would cut the red tape and make business ownership easier.
Oh, this is my favorite subject. Thank you so much, Jay, for bringing this up hundreds of times, because I want to talk about this. So I did door knocking tours in housing projects, and I had a feeling that libertarian ideas would really connect there. I didn't realize they'd be finishing my sentences. So I show up and I go, hi, I'm Spike Cohen. I'd like to talk to you about criminal justice reform. And they'd say, there is no criminal justice. And I go, that's what I was going to say. And so, and so I have these conversations. I thought that the biggest problem, this was my mistake. I thought that the biggest problem that they would want to talk about, I mean, these are in Wilmington, North Carolina. These are public housing projects, buildings that are like 100 years old. I mean, just absolutely terrible conditions. And the people were incredibly happy for us to be out there, to have a bunch of people that were engaging them and showing that we cared. But so I'm talking with them. I thought the war on drugs would be the big thing.
Right.
Occupational licensing. Occupational licensing was the thing they wanted to talk about time and time again. Because I started saying, once I realized the war on drugs was important, it was not their big thing. I would say, what's the hardest thing for you? And they'd say, Spike, I'm trying to get ahead. I don't want to live on welfare. I never once asked anyone if they wanted to be on welfare, if they wanted to be on public housing. I didn't ask any of that because I did not want to make someone feel like they had a lack of dignity about it. So I was just talking to them like I would talk to anyone else about about the challenges that face them in their community. I did not bring that up. They would say, Spike, I don't want to be on public housing. I don't want to live on welfare. I have this side hustle I'm doing. I have this business I have. I cut hair. I braid hair. I mow lawns. I'm an electrician. I'm a handyman. I'm a roofer. Matter of fact, I did that roof over there. I do this. I do that. So one person cobbled shoes, a lot of food service, like catering for events and stuff like that. DJs, all sorts, like a whole bustling economy, right? No one had licenses. Why? because they couldn't afford them. We tell people in this country, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but we don't say that the bootstrap license is like $100,000. So of course you can't afford it. So here you have a situation where people want to get ahead, but if they get too big, they have to keep it small, because if they get too big, what happens? The police show up, take all their stuff. They don't even fine them or arrest them or anything. They just take their stuff. Civil asset forfeiture. They take their stuff. They never get it back. It is disgusting. I saw a video of someone who had a taco truck or a taco bike, and he was selling tacos. They stole all of his stuff. They took his bike. They took the money out of his wallet. He's sitting there crying. Okay. And so this is what happens. They say we have to stay small. We have to stay humble. We have to kind of keep it on the down low, because if the police find out what we're doing, it's all gone. Why on the good gosh darn is it the government's business that people are trying to get ahead by providing valuable services to each other? So we believe the Jorgensen campaign and the Jorgensen administration would believe that occupational licensing laws are a violation of the right of the American people to work and to freely associate with each other. We believe it's a First Amendment right violation, and arguably a 14th Amendment right violation as well. It is a violation of your right to try to get ahead in life. There is no reason. It doesn't benefit anyone. Why is it there? So that the people who are already established in those markets don't have competition. Certainly not from those kind of people, because we know that the very first occupational licensing laws in this country were introduced after the slaves were freed, because they were going out and providing better value for less money than their white counterparts. Yeah. And that was unacceptable. So yes, we often hear, and you'll notice they focus on the emotional stuff. Like you said, they talk about the Klan. They talk about the lynchings. Those were terrible. The lynchings were terrible. The bombing of Black Wall Street was terrible. They don't talk about the fact that they systematically denied an entire race of people the ability to get ahead by providing simple, valuable services and building up their communities. They instead said, nope, you have to get a license that you will not be able to afford. And so you have to remain a sharecropper. And then they tell us the history that the reason they were sharecroppers was, well, they didn't know better. Yes, they knew better. They were trying to get ahead. They weren't allowed to. So occupational licensing has to go. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Michael Way, and then I'm gonna end with Alexander Robinson question.
Okay.
Michael Way says, Spike, how would you fix system bias? I think you just said that, such as the subtitles that don't. Such as the subtitles that don't under what Portia is saying, because it's designed for white men such as ourselves.
I'm not 100% sure what the question is.
So I don't know what we were talking about. This
such as the subtitles. I'm not Michael. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you mean, and I'm reading the whole thing here on the side. I'm not sure what you mean by that, and I apologize. I've been awake for like 24 hours now. Sorry, it might be.
That's why I'm gonna let you go. I think this is a good one.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying I need to go. I was just saying I may just not be understanding that question.
Well, Brian told me I had an hour, so I'm gonna honor that.
Okay.
We got 3 more minutes because we started at 8:10. So
that's fine. Yeah, don't worry. If we go over a little, I'm not. Brian. Okay. Brian's not gonna come get you. It's okay.
Okay. I don't want to make it that. So
no, Brian will be fine.
Okay. Jorgensen tends to quote Milton Friedman a lot, who's a great economist. What economists have influenced you?
I like Friedman, but he's kind of a Chicago schooler. So like him and Thomas Sowell, they're good, but I'm more of an Austrian. So I like von Mises, I like Rothbard, but honestly, I like Kropotkin. Like I like people even on the left. Wow. What I like about I like economists who recognize that this is not. That you cannot judge economics as a mathematical equation, because human beings are far too nuanced and complex for that. So what I like preferably about Austrian economics is that it is deemed almost like an epidemiological approach. Like it's an approach. It's doing it as an approach of determining the subject. And epidemiological is the wrong word, but it's escaping me. But it's epistemological. It's done as an approach on studying human action in a market set free, or in any market, human action within the market, as opposed to saying, well, if you do X amount of dollars printed and X amount of goods and services, this will be the outcome. That's not how people work. You can't judge. There's too many factors to try to make it into some kind of equation that you can always apply. And unfortunately, the people who often do centrally planning of government economic policy, they apply these weird formulas. And it's like, you have no idea if that's going to work. That's not how it works. Whereas Austrians, they look at it's basically almost like a psychological look at how human beings interact with each other. And I think that that's much more solid, and it's built on a foundation of understanding that this is figuring out how humans will act in a given circumstance, given all sorts of different factors. So I tend to like Rothbard, von Mises, but even like Hayek. And I'm not against the Chicago people. I'm not against Friedman and Sowell and others, but I tend to lean more towards the Austrian school.
All right. Philip Morris, he already answered your question, so you got to go back to the beginning of the video. And let me see. My mom says, thoughts on, I'm sorry, trying to bring it up. Thoughts on Kanye. You know she had to bring it up.
Oh, yeah.
Thoughts on Kanye.
Listen, I mean, it shows that you have a situation where someone who I don't think is actually...
No,
like, I think it's just saying he's running, you know, I know he has an album coming out, but the fact that so many people heard, now, meanwhile, he's been very politically active. He's been very active in, you know, getting people free out of jail. Him and Kim Kardashian West have been very active in trying to pass criminal sentencing reform and actually get specific people freed from jail. So I'm not discounting him, but here's someone who, you know, for the first time he's going, I'm running for president. If you look at the number of people who are like, all right, I'll vote for him, that goes to show just how little faith people have in this system. Yeah, I don't think, it's like, oh, Kanye West is running. All right, I'll vote for him. And and that's what it is. Now, what encourages me there is all we need to do is get in front of people. It just goes to show that if we get in front of people, they'll go, all right, yeah, I'll vote for them. Because even if they aren't 100% behind everything we're saying, they know we make sense. They know that the basis of what we're saying is correct, that this system was not designed for us. It was designed against us, and we pay for it. And
all the time, in every way, large and small. And again, and the most marginalized among us are paying the most in every way, large and small. And so, you know, I think that we connect, the more people we get in front of, the more that it's going to be obvious. And we're also the only other option that's on all 50 states ballots. So, or will be on all states ballots. George Mendoza says, what are some good books to read to understand in depth free markets and libertarian economics?
Anything from Rothbard, anything from von Mises. Again, the Friedman stuff I'm not against, but he's trying to formulate stuff that's based on human action. Anything from Rothbard or von Mises or even Hayek. My two favorite books, when people say I want to learn about libertarianism, my two favorite books that I like to point them to for two completely different reasons. One is The Law by Frederick Bastiat. It's a very short read. It's like 30, 40 pages. And it gives a basic outline of if we are to have a law and a system of civil governance, what it should be doing and what it should not be doing. And it's a lot easier to number out the things that it should be doing, because there's most of the stuff it should not be doing. Basically, government should exist to protect lives, rights, and property. And that's it. And everything else is bad. The other book I'd recommend is No Treason by Lysander Spooner. And the purpose of No Treason was it was written to expose the lie that if politicians write something on a sheet of paper, that magically makes it right and just and correct, and that using their own concepts of contract law, it is completely illegitimate for them to claim authority over us when we never consented to it. So it's it'll help you delve into some more radical ideas of libertarianism. But those are my two favorite books. And again, anything Austrian, I'm a big fan of the Austrian school, again, because it is based on the study of human action in a market, as opposed to trying to systemize it as a mathematical equation. We're not robots.
I had a professor get fired for that, Mr. Rizzotti, for teaching that in undergrad.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. So the cartel of academia in economics, they're like, no, you have to push these formulas, and it's like, these formulas are provably false. Like it doesn't work. If it had worked, we wouldn't continue having boom bust cycles. You can't systemize individual behaviors because we're not robots. We're not even animals. We have such a complex concept of how to do things, and the number of outside external factors are so wide and varied that there's no way for us to just x minus z equals q. That's not how it works. You have to judge people based on an intuitive and enlightened understanding of how people will interact with one another in a given set of circumstances in whatever that market looks like.
All right. Tell people, Gloria says, what are you, What are you doing to increase your social media presence, Facebook ads, things like that? Tell people how we can find you.
We are doing viral video stuff. We are going to be doing a big Reddit AMA. It's going to have tens of millions of people tuned into that. We are getting on the major media stuff where I can't give names yet, but we're working on some big interviews that are going to be unrolling, especially after the convention this week. We're going to be doing lots of big stuff there. And we're doing viral videos and viral content to really get out there. We are growing exponentially in our social media reach. It's growing. It's nearly doubling every few days. And so it's really, really growing. We are doing, at this point, we are so much further ahead than Gary and Bill were before that. In 2016, we do believe it's going to get us on the debate stage, and then it's all bets are off after that. Once we get on there, it's all over. So if you want to follow us, if you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, you'd like to join our team, I invite you to go to joj2020.com. That's JOJ2020.com. You can fill out our form to be a volunteer. We'd love to have you join our volunteer team. We have tens of thousands of people joining every day. We'd love to have you join. And if you're able to make a contribution, we greatly appreciate it. There's a big donate button there at the top. My social media, I am on Facebook, facebook.com/literally Spike Cohen. Or if you just search for Spike Cohen, I'm on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm at Real Spike Cohen. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. If you look for me on social media, Spike Cohen, you'll find me. If you look for Jo Jorgensen on social media, Jo Jorgensen, you'll find her. But again, our website is joj2020.com. Jo Jorgensen and I are working to set America free in our time. And with your help and with your support, that's exactly what we will do when we go into the White House this next January after the election in November. Portia, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure doing this.
Thank you, Spike. I appreciate you. I have been looking for Jay. I tell you, I have been looking forward to this. I was so excited about Joe, and I was just watching your YouTube videos. I mean, we are watching you online. I was like, I can't wait to sit down and have this conversation. I've been sharing you guys with my friends. I've convinced a couple of them. And so, we want something different. And what I like about you, and this is just me, talking to you and also to your supporters, is that you're real. And you cut it straight, and you're not trying to sugarcoat, and you're not trying to, I don't feel like you're selling me anything like
right.
Politicians, and I like that, and that's what makes you guys special, is because I think that you're talking to me, and like you said, you're finishing my sentence. I was sitting here smiling. People that know me know I talk a lot, and the things I be saying that I'm not crazy, and so I think that that's important, that people get a chance to hear that. Like I never forget my friend Felicia. She's you guys' #1 fan now. She was like, you guys were hidden gems until we brought you on the show, and a lot of people did not know. And a lot of people think it's so creepy to think outside of what we've been taught for so long.
Exactly.
And that's what you guys give a refresh and say, no, it's not creepy. You're not wrong. You're not an outsider. You are, and that's why I say, I'm not forcing my beliefs on you. You're not forcing your beliefs on me. But we do agree with this, that we should be speaking and doing for ourselves.
Exactly.
And I think that that's what you did here tonight. To your supporters, you guys know where to find them. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Spike. Hopefully, after the convention and stuff, and you guys start blowing up, you won't forget about the black belt now.
No, we'll be back. No, I'm coming back to the black belt. So you got to keep a spot. Let Brian know that I'm the one who said we go past an hour, and we will definitely get me back on here. I'd love that. I would love that. I had a fantastic time. Thank you, Portia.
Thank you guys, and I would definitely upload it to YouTube so people can share it. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much, Spike, for coming. Thank you to our sponsors, Gibbs and Sanders, as well as Chris Jones for Mayor of Uniontown, Alabama. We appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Thanks for tuning in to Portia Takes on the Black Belt. Next week, we'll be back on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Bye-bye.
Bye.